So, what are the benefits of buying a house versus renting? Hold on, let's do that backwards. What are the benefits of renting versus buying first?
Less initial money.
You don't what?
Buy it right away.
You don't have to buy it?
Spend so much money right away.
Okay, so it's not a big
That's
chunk of
basically
money
what I
right
said.
away.
Yeah.
Kyle, what were you saying?
No.
Okay. Who else? What's the benefits of renting versus buying?
You might be in the place you actually want to live.
Yeah, so if you're not sure you want to like stay in that place for a couple of years, it's a big process to buy a house, and so you might as well just rent if you know that you're going to move later, especially when you're going to college. You know, when we lived in Alamosa, it wouldn't have been that smart to buy a house knowing that we were probably going to end up coming back towards home in a couple of years. So if it's just a temporary place, then you might want to rent versus buy. Other pros to renting is that if you are renting a house and your hot water heater breaks, who pays for that?
The homeowner.
The homeowner, the landlord, right? It's expensive. Home repairs, home maintenance is very expensive. And if you're renting, you don't have to pay it. The landlord, the person who actually owns the house, pays for it. Whereas when you own your own house, you have to pay for all of it. Okay? All right, what are some benefits of buying a house versus renting a house?
You own it, so it's your rules.
Okay?
Landlords can put rules on you, so you can't have like pets or stuff.
Exactly. So landlords can put rules like pets, rules like how many cars you can have in the driveway. Like they can pretty much tell you exactly what they want. You also normally like can't paint a rented house and you can't really make it your own. But if it's your house, it's your rules. You get to decide what to do. Unless, and I think this is in a couple of units, you live in an HOA. We'll talk about HOAs, Homeowners Association, where they tell you what to do. And you pay for it, and then they tell you what to do. If you live in the city, you pretty much will be a part of an HOA automatically. And you will pay upwards of $500 a month for people to tell you what to do.
One thing I know about that is on Duck Dynasty one time they talked about the HOA.
Yeah? Yeah, people hate HOAs. They're there for a reason, but they're kind of a catch-22. Okay, other benefits are if you own the house, you have equity. So equity is your total worth. So if any of you took accounting, we talk about total worth of a person is the things that they actually own and have in their name. So if you rent a house, then you have nothing to sell if you need money, right? Equity is things that you have that you're capable of selling to increase your worth. Okay, so let's just dive right in. So if we're looking at borrowing to buy a house, you would be shocked how many times people miss these questions just because they don't know the vocabulary. I'm not going to write it all down, but let's just talk about the vocabulary in this chapter. I've seen people miss it like on the final at the end of the year too because they don't know the vocabulary. So first, let's talk about down payment. Okay, most people make a cash down payment or a percentage of the total cost at the time of purchase. So when you go to buy a house, you can't just go and buy a house unless you have a little bit of money to put down. Okay, to put down on the house so that they know that you are capable of paying it back. It's usually about 20%. Okay, that's ideal. Ideally, 20%. So the average cost of a house is like $200,000. So how much do you have to put down on that?
20.
No.
No.
20,000.
Nope.
10,000.
20% of $200,000.
40,000.
$40,000. Thank you.
20 is
$40,000. Okay.
$5.
Ideal is 20%. Now, there are like loan programs that you can get into, specifically like first-time home buyers loans where you don't have to put anything down, which can be dangerous. But some typical loans will ask for at least 10%. So on a $200,000 house, how much do you have to put down?
$40,000.
No, at a 10%, sorry, at a 10%, $20,000, okay? So you put that money down on that $200,000 house. Do you have to then pay for that later?
No.
No, okay? It reduces the price of the house. So if I have, this is just an example, this is not from the book or anything like that, but if I have a $200,000 house and I have to do a 10% down payment, which is how much? $20,000. Okay? I don't have to pay the $20,000 again. People mistake this all the time. Therefore, how much is my mortgage loan going to be from the bank? $180,000. Okay? That's how much I'm going to pay for my house. Or that's how much my loan is going to be. When you make the down payment, your loan is then decreased. So you want as high of a down payment as you can possibly get before buying a house, which is not always easy, unless usually you're selling another house, because then you have a lot of money to put down. Okay? But the first time you buy a house, that's why they have loan programs that allow you to pay less down to start with. So the money that you borrow from a bank, this is our mortgage. Okay? The money borrowed is called the principal. So that means what equation are we going to be using? I equals PRT. It's not going anywhere. It is here to stay. Okay? All right. The next thing we need to talk about is closing costs. So just because I'm getting a mortgage of $180,000 and I'm paying a 10% down payment of $20,000, those aren't the only two numbers that are going to be affected in this transaction. I'm going to have to pay some fees. So here are some fees that could happen in your loan process. They typically range between 3% to 6% of a purchase price of a home. So let's say it's 5% of this $200,000 loan. How much would that be? If this is 10%, how much would 5% be? 10 grand, okay? So you need a $20,000 down payment and $10,000 for the fees.
Oh my god.
Yes. The fees include closing costs, legal fees, recording fees, title insurance, loan application fees, appraisal and inspection fees, land surveys, prepaid taxes, prepaid interest, interest, or then they're talking about interest rates and closing costs. But you have to pay things up front. You can't just put it into your loan. You have to have a lot of money to be able to close onto a house. And when I worked in the banking system, a lot of people were like shocked by this. Don't be shocked by the fact that buying a house is really expensive. It's a huge purchase. Probably the biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life is a house. So you want to make sure that when you're looking at houses on Zillow, that you're looking within your price range, knowing that on top of that price is more costs on top. Hidden fees. Okay? All right, so here is our two equations that we're going to be utilizing first. They're right here in bold, and I'll write them in red. Mortgage loan, which is what you're borrowing from the bank, equals the price minus the down payment. So that's what we were talking about above. You are not going to borrow what you paid down in cash. That would suck. Every time people miss this on the quiz and they add in the down payment into the loan, I'm always like, wow, that would suck. And I write it on their paper. Wow, it would suck if you had to also borrow your down payment that you already paid.
Yeah, so you paid $20,000,
Right?
but then you have to pay it back.
Yeah, exactly. That would suck. No, that's not how it works. You make the down payment and you don't have to borrow it. That's the pro to paying a huge down payment. Okay? And then our second equation is the cash needed. And instead of to buy a house, I say at closing. And closing is the process of actually getting the key to your house. So you go to the closing at a real estate, either at a real estate agency or at a bank. It depends on the transaction. The first house I bought was at a bank. Second house was at a real estate agency where we actually closed on the house. So the cash that you need is the down payment plus closing costs. Okay? You would be shocked the number of people, I've taught this class for now, this is the 4th year, people miss this all the time. So it's not as easy as it sounds. So let's look at A on page 210. Okay, Ricky's lender requires him to make a 25% down payment to get a mortgage on a home that costs $86,000. What amount will Ricky have to borrow from the bank to purchase the home. So this is the mortgage loan. So the price of the mortgage is the price of the house, price of the house is $86,000. We're gonna subtract out,
Please excuse this interruption, but happy day. The internet is back up.
Okay.
Internet is back and working. And phone. Thank you.
I
okay?
thought she was gonna say, happy day, you all get to go home. Go on.
Coronavirus.
No,
Coronavirus part 2.
haven't I told you guys they're not gonna come over the intercom and do that?
I know,
Yeah.
That was
but
pretty
still,
epic when they did.
still.
Okay, so
Stirred up the room.
we're gonna do the purchase price minus the down payment. How do we calculate the down payment?
It's 25%.
25%.
Yes, 86,000 times 0.25.
21,500.
Okay, so our total loan, $64,500. This is where my loan payment will be calculated from, is this $64,500, not off of the $86,000. Okay, all right. So let's talk about mortgage interest. So there's many different types of mortgages, which is true and makes it extra confusing when you're trying to get a loan. There are variable rate mortgages where your interest rate can change at any time. They give you a range and it can't go above it or below it, but it can change at any given time. So it could go down, which is cool, but it also could go up, which would suck, right? So you kind of take a gamble because you could have a lower rate or you could have a higher one. Or there is a fixed rate mortgage where it stays the same for the life of the loan. Now, when I say the life of a loan, what are the two most common terms for a mortgage? As in, how long will they give you to pay off a house? There's two very typical amounts of years. Do you know?
How long?
It's like 25. Like 20.
No.
30,
30 is the first one.
40.
60,
No. Shorter than that.
10,
35.
15. Okay, so there are 15-year mortgages and 30-year mortgages. 15, so 15 times 12. You make 180 payments and your house is paid off. 30-year mortgages, you make 360 payments and your house is paid off.
The 15 doesn't sound like very much, even though it is like a lot, but it sounds like money that.
Well, I mean, you save a ton of interest on a 15-year mortgage, but your payment is higher because you're trying to pay it off more. And we're going to talk about this more tomorrow outside of the book. Whereas a 30-year, your payment is a lot lower, but you end up paying for your house usually twice. Like it's usually double whatever the cost of your house was. But for some people, that's all they can afford. So that's the way it goes. Okay, most mortgages are repaid gradually or amortized. Do you remember talking about this amortization thing? Where your payment is split between interest and principal? Yes, that's what we're getting into right now. So look at this blue box right here. So it's like a teal. I don't know what color that is. Green? Is that green? Blue?
On 211.
Yeah. Green. Okay. So
It's yellow.
this
Red.
looks like it's a 30-year mortgage. On the first payment, you're going to pay $601.41. But that payment is split between interest and principal. It's $568 are going to go to interest. And who gets that money? The bank. Okay? And $32.66 goes towards your mortgage. $30. That's why it takes so long. Yes. How is the amount of interest calculated? I equals PRT. Right. And on this one, does it tell us how much it is? Yeah, $70,000 mortgage. Okay. So for a $70,000 mortgage, $568.75 is going to interest for the first month. $32 is going towards the mortgage. So now you owe $69,970 still. You've barely paid it off. Okay? Then by the end, it's kind of flipped. So $14 will go to interest and $568.98 goes towards principal. Why does it flip like that?
Paying down the loan.
Right, so the P is going lower, right? So the principal is going so much lower, so I equals PRT is resulting in a lot lower number. Okay? Okay, so let's look at something fun. Well, it's not really fun, But this $70,000 house, okay, is the cost. This is the cost of the house, or the amount of the loan. How much are the payments?
Where is that?
601, 41.
601.41. How many years is this mortgage?
30.
30 years. How many months are in a year?
12.
12. Okay, this is payments per year. So this house, wait, 601.41.
$216,507.60. That's like double.
Okay,
It's more than double. It's like triple.
this is how much you're gonna pay for this house.
Thank you, Mr. Accountant.
It is a $70,000 house, and you're gonna pay $216,000 and some change. Okay?
Let's go.
The price of your house didn't change. So how much did the bank make off of this loan?
Correct.
Yeah. $140,000 went straight to the bank, just right in their pockets. And people wonder why banks make money. This is how banks make money. They love mortgages because mortgages are where they make the most money. So much so that banks sell and trade mortgages all the time because it's such a big moneymaker. So when you get a mortgage, it's not uncommon for them to then sell your mortgage to another lender.
Didn't you say yours was?
Yeah, our house, we've only lived there for a year and a half and it's been sold twice. The mortgage has been sold twice. So we pay different people. Like, we just have to figure out who we're trying to pay each month and make sure we're paying the right person. But they sell it because it's such a big moneymaker. And this is a $70,000 house. The average cost of a house is like $200,000.
Sounds like a bunch of
It's crazy. It's so crazy. That's why you want a big down payment, because then your loan is so much lower and you end up paying a lot less.
The only thing I'm hearing is rent.
I mean, but if you rent forever, how much is average rent? $600.
Probably about
Okay? How many years from the time you graduate to the time you die?
10, 15.
No.
So,
So
six,
four,
got
maybe
12.
60.
Let's say 60 years. And you're going to pay that every month.
Yeah.
So are you gonna die at 68, bro?
How much is that?
$432,000.
Look at that, I'm saving me some money.
What, a $600 rental house? That's like 2-bedroom, small.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's
Wait,
Not-
I don't know. Hey,
I mean, I can double the
But that's most rental houses, though.
Being an adult is just expensive. It just is. And the cost of housing is very expensive. And if you live somewhere like New York City, then just forget it.
Yeah, honestly,
New York.
that's wild.
Yeah.
You tell them.
Okay.
Mr. said like his son's apartment was like $1,000 in like Greeley or something.
Yes, in Denver. His son is in pharmacy school in Denver. Okay, so how do banks figure out how much your payment is going to be? They use a table like this table right here, this yellow table. It's very easy to read. All you have to do is figure out the dollar amount of the loan, what interest rate they're charging, and how long your loan is going to be. I don't like that this book uses 20-year, 25-year mortgages because those are very uncommon. Very uncommon. Most common is 15 and 30, but whatever. We'll just let the book think what it thinks. So, for instance, if we had a $60,000 loan at 7% for 30 years, what would your payment be? $399.18. That's how much your payment would be each month. You would pay $399.18 for 30 years once a month. You pay a lot. How much is that? I'm always curious. And I see Haley.
$143,704.80.
On a $60,000 house. Okay.
Nice.
All right, so let's look at C. Marvin bought a home for $95,000 with a $15,000 down payment. His mortgage is for 20 years at 7%. Find his monthly payment and the total amount he will pay in interest over the 20-year loan period. So, First, we have to calculate how much he's actually borrowing from the bank. So how much is he borrowing from the bank?
$80.
80,000.
Okay, 90,000 minus the down payment. The loan is actually only 80,000.
$620.24.
Okay, yeah, so we use the table, 7%, 20 years, $80,000, 620 and 24 cents.
Yeah.
Okay, this is how much his payment is each month. They want to know what the total amount of interest will be over this loan period. So, how many times is he going to pay this? He's going to pay it
20 years.
for 20 years, 12 times a year. $148,857. Okay,
So I think we need to open a bank, bro.
so this is how much he
Might,
pays.
honestly.
I know, right? So how much of this is interest?
All of it.
148,857.60 minus the original amount of $80,000. $857
Yeah. 60 cents.
and 60 cents. Okay? And where does that money go? Just to reiterate,
So
The bank.
the bank. Good.
The bank.
Okay. Questions on that? Is it a little depressing?
a little
Yes.
bit,
A
yeah.
little bit. You can do it. You can do it.
Mortgages aren't that
It's not that
I got
hard.
suicidal thoughts right now.
I mean, the best thing to do for your first house is find the worst house on the best block and just renovate it. Our first house only cost us $40,000.
Smart.
We paid it off. Well, we almost had it paid off by the time we moved out. We renovated it, flipped it for more than double to put into our next house. That's how you do it. But we also have a 30-year mortgage, so don't look up to me too much.
All of your Indian rents.
And
Yeah, that's
mortgage is
not
low
very
right
good.
now.
But it's especially like an old house.
Yes. Okay. The last thing is refinancing a mortgage. This is my least favorite part. I wish it had its own section because this is kind of a weird thing to throw in here. But once you have a mortgage, you can refinance for a lower percentage, okay? A lower APR. You would want a lower percentage because why?
Less interest.
Less interest. And if you have less interest, then your payment per month is going to be lower, okay? So the monthly payment is going to go down. So let's look at the example, and then I have a equation written in my book. So the Rose had a fixed mortgage at 9.65% with an unpaid balance of $40,000. Their monthly payment of the old mortgage was $511.09. They got a new mortgage at 7.98% and the amount of the unpaid balance from the other lender. Their new monthly payment is only $340.73. So, in order to solve this, the easiest way, I have this equation written in my book. We're going to have a big parenthesis, and within it we're going to have brackets. Okay, so if you take the old payment and you subtract out the new payment, which should be smaller, otherwise you're dumb, and then you multiply that times 12, which is the number of months in a year, right? And you subtract out all the closing costs, it will give you the amount saved without doing as much work as the book tells you to. Which is what you're trying to see, is how much money are you going to save throughout the year.
We love shortcuts.
We do.
Yes, yes, as long as you understand brackets. Okay? Which we do first. So, using this equation, let's look at E. E says that Nancy's monthly mortgage payment is $597. That's the original old payment. So $597. She can refinance her loan to have a monthly payment of $465. Okay. In order to get this, she has to pay a closing cost. This is a fee of $836. How much will she save?
$748.
$748?
Yeah.
Just be careful because like in this next one, let's go ahead and do this next one. They put things in a really weird order. So you have to make sure you know where you're putting everything. So F says, Will can refinance a mortgage by paying $716 in closing costs and $485 for a prepayment charge. That is also a cost, a closing cost. Okay, so we're gonna have to add those two together. His current monthly mortgage payment is $982, and his new payment will be $876. If he refinances, how much will he save in the first year? So we have our old payment of $982 minus the new payment of $876. We're going to take that by 12. And we're going to subtract from that those two closing costs, so $716 and $485. Does he save anything in the first year?
$71.
71 whole dollars.
That's pretty epic.
Okay, what if they asked you how much he's going to save in the second year? This is the first year.
You just came up though.
So this is year 1. Year 2, he would save, it's just this part, right?
Yeah, you just
Yes.
subtract.
982 minus 876 times 12. How much is he going to save in the second year? $1,272. Okay, that's not a bad savings in the second year. And that's because the interest rate went down. So once you get a mortgage, like literally the next month, they're going to send you things that say refinance, refinance, refinance. But you got to make sure you're getting a good enough deal by looking at how many fees they're going to charge you and also the headache because it's a lot of work to refinance. It's a lot of work to buy a house too. It takes usually about 2 months to buy a house. Inspections and sometimes they have to like replace the roof and stuff. It's just a lot of work to buy a house. All right. Questions before you get started?
No more.
Okay. So let's go ahead and do on page 214. I have the answers to all of these questions written in my book, so I'm happy to answer them if you need help. We're going to do number 11 through 26 all. Not too bad. 15 problems.